One of the common things you'll see in Chinese fantasy novels are the 5 elements or the 5 phases. Of course, those being Hey everybody, Deathblade here. Welcome to another Chinese fantasy novel FAQ. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by my original novel series, The 9 Heavens and 10 Earths. You can read it for free on Kindle Unlimited. Check the link in the description below or in the pinned comment. And today I am talking about some of the top most confusing Chinese terms that have multiple definitions which can be interchanged. They're like synonymous translations. And sometimes the translation choice is very obvious, sometimes it's not. Sometimes when I am translating, I'll come across a term and I think it should be translated one way, then much later I'll find some play on words that indicates it should be translated another way. The thing about most of these terms is that you, the reader, actually should be able to identify many of them in English. What I mean is when you come across these terms in English, you'll be able to say, I know that this also means something else in Chinese. So I think this video will be particularly useful for people who read a lot of translations. It will give you a little bit of an edge to understanding the novels when you come across some of these common, difficult to translate terms. The first one is jin, and jin can mean both metal and gold. One of the common things you'll see in Chinese fantasy novels are the 5 elements or the 5 phases. Of course, those being metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. And in that grouping, the metal is actually the character for gold. Now, the thing that happens in Chinese fantasy novels a lot is because the 5 elements are so commonly used, that character jin will appear, and sometimes it's difficult to tell whether it means metal or whether it means gold. And sometimes it can mean both. So a lot of times when you see characters who have weapons or techniques that in English might have gold, it could be referring more to the metal, which is part of those elements as it's commonly translated in English. The next term is Diablo. I'll pull it up here on the screen. This has 2 main meanings. One is kalpa, the other is tribulation. Kalpa is a time measurement, generally referring to the time period from the beginning of to the end of a universe. There are other meanings depending on how it stacks up with other terms, but the long story short is it's a really, really long period of time. In my most recent translation project, Sage Monarch, the differentiation and the similarities between these 2 characters were a feature of one of the main aspects of the novel, which is why it jumps to mind. But actually, in my original translation that started my career path, so to speak, I Shall Fill the Heavens, also had similar wordplay. Now the thing is, this exact same term is also used to mean tribulation. A lot of times the jia part is taken out and combined with other words to refer to specific kinds of tribulations in Chinese fantasy novels. Now, tribulations I've been meaning to do a video about, and I haven't yet. If I ever do, I'll try to come back here and link to it. But basically, the tribulations in Chinese fantasy novels generally are when characters ascend to a higher level, and heaven or the heavens tries to prevent them from doing that or punish them for doing that, and will send down lightning to try to kill them. Or it doesn't necessarily have to be lightning, it could be other things. But the point is, these 2 meanings, the kalpa, a period of time, and the tribulation, which in the fantasy novels is heaven trying to punish the cultivator, both are Diablo or aspects of that. And so as you can imagine, it's difficult to try to decide how to translate that if you don't know which meaning it's referring to. The next term is Dingong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the definition on my phone to kind of scroll through, and I'll read some of them. This is a really, really, really common term that comes up all the time that can have a lot of different interpretations. So going through it, you can see it means, among other things, diamond. It's a transliteration of Sanskrit, Vajra, a thunderbolt or mythical weapon. It can mean a guardian deity. Going further down, a hard metal, a pupa of certain insects. And one thing that's not showing up here, I must have clicked on a different definition, is King Kong. It's the common translation for King Kong, or it's even used in the name for Wolverine, the Marvel character. He's the Dingong wolf. So the meaning of the character changes depending on the context. Sometimes in the Chinese fantasy novels, it will be obvious what it's supposed to mean, sometimes not, especially when it's just kind of thrown in as someone's name. So when you are reading and you see random appearances of King Kong, of Vajra, of Diamond, or of a Buddha's attendant, anything like that, and it doesn't make sense, and you can know it's probably this word. And I will read the definition from my Buddhist dictionary, which I think is one of the most detailed and cool in my set of different dictionaries. It says, the thunderbolt of Indra, often called the diamond club, but recent research considers it a sun symbol. The diamond, synonym of hardness, indestructibility, power, the least frangible of minerals. It is also one of the Saptaratna which if you go through to that, the Saptaratna are the 7 treasures or precious things, of which there are varying descriptions, and it goes through all these different things. So again, Dingong can be translated so many different ways and interpreted different ways depending on the context, but at least now you kind of have an idea of what are some of the variations. Next are the words for thunder and lightning. Now there are specific words in Chinese, one of which means lightning specifically, one of which means thunder specifically. However, I have seen multiple authors use them interchangeably, especially thunder. Thunder will come up all the time when it in fact means lightning, even though there is a specific word for lightning. It's just one of those things I noticed when translating, coming up over and over again, to the point where I realized, okay, yes, the authors do indeed use thunder to mean lightning all the time. The point being that a lot of times when you are reading the novels, you will read characters who some translators might translate their names or abilities as thunder because they're being faithful to the Chinese character, when in fact what the author is really meaning is lightning. I have literally translated scenes where the author says things like there are thousands of bolts of black thunder falling. Of course, in English, thunder is referring to the sound and lightning is referring to what you can see. But again, in Chinese, they are used interchangeably. This, for over the years, originally was really difficult for me because I saw the stuff coming up as thunder and I was like, wait a second, but they can see it and it's like hitting things. It can't be thunder, right? Yes, it can. And you as the reader now, when you see references to thunder that seem oddly out of place, perhaps the translator was just being overly faithful to the literal definition of the characters. Now we reach the last term here, and it's also to do with thunder. I'm going to pull it up on the screen. Here is the character for thunder, and here is the character for snow. As you can see, they're very similar, and for me personally, I have mixed them up many times. Just reading quickly, I'll see the character for thunder and I'll type in snow, or maybe vice versa. I honestly don't know if there's a method to my madness in terms of what my brain is doing to confuse them, but they're very similar, and there have been instances where I have gone for even dozens of chapters translating something as snow instead of thunder, or thunder instead of snow. And again, we get into the issue of whether thunder is actually meaning thunder or lightning. That's what I just talked about a moment ago. The point being, the visual similarities between those characters have been very problematic for me personally. Now, there are a lot of Chinese characters that look very similar. There are only a set number of components that can make up the characters, and so this is not the only character that is easily mistaken for another. But for me, in the cultivation novels and the fantasy novels, because both snow and thunder and lightning are so common as part of the magic systems, they come up so much that this is, for me personally, the one that has stuck out over the years as being consistently difficult to spot. As opposed to other characters, many of the times, the characters, despite being easily mistaken for each other, if you just put them next to each other, when put in context, it's obvious what they mean. These two, it's not necessarily obvious. If someone is wielding the snow sword as opposed to the thunder sword or the lightning sword, you might not necessarily get that until you see what the effects are, which might not happen over many chapters. So I hope this video was a little bit helpful to you if you read these novels. If you like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. Please share the video to people you think might be interested. And also please check out The 9 Heavens and 10 Earths, my original work, which is a cyberpunk cultivation novel. If you like the kind of content I produce on this channel, I think you will enjoy it. That's it for this video. I will see you next time. Godspeed.